Hi, the SI meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday afternoon, December 27th, and I thought we'd take a look ahead into January to see if there are any clues as to what the weather may hold as we evolve from December into January. Of course, it's been a very mild month here in the eastern part of the U.S., but there are some signs that much colder weather is on its way for the early part of the new year. Well, we've recently talked about a potential stratospheric warming event over the polar region and how that could set off a chain of events that could lead to a blocking pattern in the Arctic region, which in turn can allow cold air to penetrate into the central and eastern part of the U.S. That sort of chain of events can be monitored by a couple of indexes that we follow, the North Atlantic Oscillation and the Arctic Oscillation. And if in fact stratospheric warming in turn leads to this blocking pattern, the NAO and the AO, as they're known, should flip to a negative sign. And this particular graphic shows the negative or cold phase of the NAO and the Arctic oscillation. Basically, high pressure develops over Greenland, which kind of forms a blocking pattern which forces cold air to penetrate into the central and eastern part of the country. So by monitoring these indexes, the NAO and the Arctic oscillation, we can get some idea if in fact blocking is developing over the Arctic region. In fact, let's now take a look at the indexes, the NAO and the AO. Well, this is the GFS Arctic Oscillation Bias, the forecast from the GFS computer forecast model for about the next week or so. And anything above this line here is positive, and we've been positive for the last several weeks in terms of the Arctic oscillation. This is kind of a cousin to the North Atlantic Oscillation, which we'll take a look at in a moment. And this is kind of the bigger picture of the larger scale index here that we follow. Right now, we're still positive right here, but you see the trend by the GFS, and at least in terms of the GFS forecast here for the next week or so, is definitely on a downward trend. In fact, it drops off quite rapidly as we get into the early part of January. So this is one indication that there is something going on, at least the models are picking up. And now let's take a look at the NAO. This is the NAO from the Global Forecast System model from last night's run. This is a slightly different orientation compared to the last map. By the way, both of these maps are from Dr. Ryan Mowry's website. This is the current situation right here. Again, a positive value here for the NAO. But again, just like the AO, the Arctic Oscillation, the trend over this happens to be over the next 2 weeks. The trend is certainly towards neutral or even below the neutral line here over the next couple of weeks. So a couple of indications from the GFS model that things are changing in the overall atmosphere. Now let's look ahead. This is the very latest GFS, the 12Z GFS forecast for a week from now, next Tuesday, and it's the surface map from the GFS model. And this has a very cold air mass here moving in for the early part of the new year, along around next Monday night or Tuesday or so. This particular GFS model run had quite a powerful storm going from the Great Lakes to the northern part of New England, and that swings a very strong cold front through here. And by this time on Tuesday, we have very cold high pressure situated over the northern part of the Great Lakes, sending cold air down the coast. This is the coldest air mass we've seen yet, if in fact it comes to fruition early next year, which is about a week from now. But the GFS is picking something up here, and this is all playing, perhaps indicating what could happen over the next week or two, with the NAO and the Arctic Oscillation also indicating a big change may be coming. Now, it's not just the GFS computer forecast model that is indicating some changes may be coming. This happens to be last night's European model run for the same time, a week from now, next Tuesday. And we're here not looking at the surface, but at the upper air, the 500 millibar pattern. And it is a very cold, a very interesting pattern, to say the least, perhaps being overdone somewhat by the European model. But it is just a tremendous deep trough here in the eastern states about a week from now, early next week. So this has not only the threat for much colder weather in the early part of the week, but even the possibility of some snow if this were in fact to come true. And we'll have to monitor this situation over the next couple of days or so. So the GFS model is not showing a kind of a trough like this, but even the GFS model is now showing some very cold air coming into the eastern part of the U.S. early next week, whereas the European model has not only cold but potentially stormy for the early part of next week. Now, if we really want to speculate, let's go out 2 weeks here. This is from the GFS again, and this is the surface map for 2 weeks from now. We're talking now about January 11th or so, and this is a very wintry looking map right here. We have a tremendously strong cold high pressure system here, the 1040 millibar high predicted by the GFS a couple of weeks out here, situated in Western Canada, with these blue lines represent temperatures in a way, and this is the minus 30 degree isotherm here in Canada. A tremendous cold air outbreak really throughout the entire northern part of the country right here. Again, so there are some indications here, certainly some indications that much colder air is on its way here in the eastern part of the country. We'll continue to follow the NAO and the AO, but the whole thing may have begun with a stratospheric warming event over the polar region over the last couple of weeks, and there are definite signs of winter weather coming as we roll into January. So stay tuned. We'll continue to monitor it here at the SIweather.com. That's it for now. I'm the SI meteorologist, Paul Dorian.